Welcome to another video. I'm going to be talking about how Game Week 8 went and then looking ahead to Game Week 9 with my future transfer plans, the captaincy, that's the big one. Will I be going with form with Mohamed Salah, or will I trust the fixture and back Romelu Lukaku to turn around his form? So without further ado, let's head straight into the video. So in Game Week 8, I got 58 points, a small green arrow to around 79,500, so I'll take that, but still a bit disappointing, a few things that happened, especially the changes I made to my team because of the Heung-min Son news, because he did have a positive COVID test supposedly, but then the day after, it turned out negative, and then he played against Newcastle and then got the goal and 2 bonus points, but it is what it is. Although, of course, I would definitely love to have Heung-min Son or Vardy in my team. And having both of them is actually possible. Same with having most of these players apart from maybe one of those premium defenders and Romelu Lukaku. But with those fixtures on the horizon for Chelsea, you probably wouldn't want to go without Lukaku, despite him blanking in 6 successive games, 4 in the Premier League, which is obviously very surprising, but you would expect Norwich to be a great catalyst for his turnaround. And then looking at this team and how they performed specifically in Game Week 8, Ramsdale, he was on course for potentially a clean sheet and a save point, maybe some bonus points, but Arsenal are just very unreliable, and that's why I tend to kind of steer clear from their assets. And, having both of them was probably a mistake anyway. And Saka was someone that I was not really, I'd say, too confident about at any point. But I was looking at the options and the next few game weeks, and I wanted Saka and then move him on to maybe Mbumo. But end of the day, what happened to Saka was absolutely unbelievable. So he got a yellow card, and then literally within a minute, he gets swiped by MacArthur. I don't know how he stayed on the pitch, by the way. That was a definite sending off. And then at halftime, he gets substituted out. So 0 points for Saka. That's probably the worst transfer, or at least introduction to a wildcard team I've ever made. I'm going to have to think of something, but that's definitely up there. Then looking at the defence, a bit more impressive. I like the double City defence. Unfortunately, though, Diaz didn't start and he came off for a 1-pointer, but Cancelo started. Most people were thinking, including myself, that it would be Diaz starting and Cancelo benched, with Zinchenko maybe making an appearance here, but that could happen in the Champions League. So with Pep, you just never know. Just, roll the dice and see where it lands, to be honest. Azpilicueta got the clean sheet, and then Trent as well. So very happy with all of them, and Livramento. So really, it's just Diaz letting me down, and the defence, I have to say, carried me this week, other than Ramsdale in goal. And then in the midfield, Salah captain. This guy's unbelievable, and once again, I was talking about his good record in early matches because everyone was a bit concerned about the early kickoff. Salah is kind of an anomaly. You don't have to worry about that with him. And a great performance. It was Firmino actually who got the limelight with a hat-trick and an assist with 20 points. But Salah is just so consistent and so reliable. Maybe we should captain him up until the rest of the season. Townsend, very disappointing. Same with Antonio. Pretty much 3 points between them. Antonio got a yellow card. And Saka, of course, I discussed him already. So disappointing. And then Lukaku, another one who actually I think got pushed offside at one point by a Brentford defender. But yeah, he's just not really been too impressive, Lukaku. But I would expect him to turn his form around in the next few games. He's facing some of the worst defences. If he doesn't, come away with any of those games, with a return, I'd be very surprised, and I wouldn't hesitate in selling him for Jamie Vardy or Ronaldo maybe at some point, although I think Vardy is the one to go for. And then looking at my bench, Rafinha didn't play. That's how Livramento came on for me, so a bit fortunate there. Ivan Toney blanked, and Douglas Luiz as well. So not much to really talk about on the bench, and I've got a strong squad. That's what I like, and I like my defence a lot. But looking at it overall, there are players like Son and Vardy, of course, that are definitely missing in here. And I would love to have them, to be honest. But unfortunately, it's just simply not possible. So we're going to look ahead now to Game Week 9. And it's looking pretty decent. And this is how it was actually set up before the Saka knock and the injury he sustained against Crystal Palace. He was second on my bench, and I'll probably have no kind of hesitation putting him there. Ahead of Game Week 9 now. I've got Ramsdale in goal, not much choice there anyway. And double City defence against Brighton, that's not necessarily the easiest fixture, but City tend to do pretty well against Brighton, especially at the Amex. So I'd expect them to do the business. Maybe not last time out though, where Brighton actually beat them, but still, double City defence should be good. Will Cancelo start in that game? I mean, he's been starting every single Champions League and Premier League game so far this season, but you just never know with Pep. So you know what? The less I talk about rotation, the better. Trent away to Manchester United, not the greatest fixture, but I'm still pretty happy having him there, of course. He always has that attacking potential, and I still think Liverpool can actually keep a clean sheet against United, despite how good the Red Devils are in attack. And then Azpilicueta at home to Norwich. If you have double or triple Chelsea defence, this could be a really good fixture, although you probably would want space for a midfielder or Lukaku in your team. And in the midfield, it's actually looking pretty decent. We've got Townsend at home to Watford, and Watford were awful, although they are facing probably one of the best attacks and teams in the world in Liverpool. It's not going to be the case with the other side of Liverpool and Everton, but still, I think Townsend could be doing pretty well here. And I was mainly looking at these sorts of fixtures when getting him in. And he also has good long-term fixtures, despite, I'd say, a few tricky matches coming up very soon. And then Salah away to Manchester United. I am tempted in captaining him, and I'll be talking about the captaincy later with Romelu Lukaku. And then Rafinha, pretty decent fixture against Wolves, and I think he could do pretty well, to be honest. And Rafinha he's been so good this season for both Brazil and for Leeds. He hasn't been, I'd say, too consistent or impressive so far, but still, he was picking up some returns before the international break that just went by. And he's just such an impressive player. So very happy to have him in my squad. And he's someone that I trust and I think can be pretty reliable and consistent up until whenever I get rid of him, to be honest. And then Ivan Toney at home to Leicester. I could actually play Livramento at home against Burnley, or even Saka if he's fit against Villa. But at the moment, I'm tempted to play Toney. Leicester have been very poor defensively, despite their great performance overall against Manchester United. Their defence is still struggling and they're conceding a lot of goals, and I think Brentford could make it very difficult for them. So actually, Ivan Toney, I'd be tempted to start him. Same if I had Mbumo. So he is in there at the moment, but Livramento has been also quietly ticked along nicely. He's got more points than Luke Shaw this season, just putting it out there. And then we've got Antonio, 2 successive blanks, and most of his returns have come in the first 3 game weeks of the season, but still his underlying stats are impressive, and I would expect him against Tottenham, who still look very shaky at the back, conceded 2 to Newcastle. I think Antonio could actually do really well here in this London derby. And then Lukaku at home to Norwich, and I wouldn't be selling him ahead of this fixture for sure. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. And in terms of the captaincy, I'm more of a form over fixtures person, but still, once again, I'm going to be backing the fixture in this occasion, at this moment in time anyway. I'll be looking at even more stats as the week progresses. Of course, Salah is top for XG. He's even up there for expected assists and all of these key underlying stats. Lukaku, the same can't be said for him. Instead, Antonio actually has superior stats. But that fixture against Norwich, any central striker, any winger can have a lot of joy against them. I know Norwich just kept a clean sheet against Brighton, but still, I think that Lukaku and Chelsea should be able to put 2 or 3 past Norwich, and I think that his ceiling on paper is higher than Salah's. Then again though, the kind of form Salah is in, he can return against any single side. So of course, if you have a good feeling about him, same goes for any other player, maybe a Cancelo or someone like that, or Vardy, Son, then go for it. But at the moment, I'm just going to be going for Lukaku. Despite how many blanks he's produced in a row, I don't expect that to keep up. I think he's going to turn his form around. And Norwich is a perfect opportunity to kind of kickstart your season. Arsenal did it a few weeks ago, and of course they're still struggling, but that's another kind of case in itself. Lukaku, I'd expect to get some goals here, and I think he could do really well. One thing, of course, to bear in mind when you're captaining a striker over a midfielder is that they need to do more than, let's say, a Salah would to kind of match them or surpass them for points, because of the extra point for a goal scored as a midfielder and also the clean sheet point, and you're probably a bit more likely to get the bonus points as a midfielder if you score. So bear all of that in mind. But I think Manchester United, despite how poor they have been, I think they'll be up for this game against Liverpool. It could be a bit tighter than we expect, and maybe they'll be a bit more resolute defensively, which they certainly haven't been this season. But with Chelsea against Norwich, despite Norwich's improvement in Game Week 8, I still would expect Chelsea to do pretty well here. But of course, I will admit, I might end up changing it to Salah. I am tempted to captaining, I'm not going to deny that. But at the moment, I've got it on Romelu Lukaku. In terms of my transfer plans now, I'm not going to be necessarily building towards this team, but there are a few players on my watch list and on my radar at the moment. And of course, I mean, look at this draft. I would actually have enough money to do this, have Jamie Vardy and Heung-min Son, of course, at the expense of Lukaku. And I'm not making these transfers over the next week or so. I think my plan will be to hold, and then potentially looking ahead to Game Week 10, that's when I have 2 free transfers and I have a bit more flexibility. And of course, that's when Mbumo and Brentford's fixtures turn much for the better, and that's where he could be coming into my side. So Mbeumo could come in for Saka, for example, and then Lukaku could become Vardy probably around the time that Chelsea's fixtures turn for the worse, and also Leicester's fixtures look a bit better, although to be honest, Leicester's fixtures are pretty mixed for a long period of time. They're pretty good overall, but for the next few they're quite mixed bag, they're nothing special. And also around game week 12 you want to be getting in Heung-min Son or Harry Kane, because their fixtures are absolutely sensational and it's for a long period of time, up until game week 25-26. So Heung-min Son, that's why I wanted him on a wild card. The COVID kind of news and false positive put me off, and I ended up reshuffling my wildcard team, unfortunately. But having this would actually be really good. The only kind of qualms I'd have is having Chilwell in there, because he's going to be in and out of that team, of course, when he does play, as he's shown in the last 2 games. He can score, he can get explosive returns, and of course Chelsea are so solid defensively that they can get the clean sheet also. And Duffy could come in for one of my City defenders, Diaz or Cancelo, and I think I would have just about enough money right now if it was Cancelo making way and I keep Diaz. So literally I have 0 million left with this team. And Chilwell, once again, not really too confident about him. I wouldn't mind having Duffy as a 4th or 5th defender, and then having Son and Vardy, as well as Salah and Trent, a Chelsea defender and a City defender. I just think it's kind of a really balanced team, and I'd really like it. But ultimately, my next kind of transfer plan would be in game week 10, maybe use 2 free transfers. If not, maybe just make 1 and do Saka to Mbeumo. It could also be Townsend making way, but that will be the kind of first step. And then from there on, I will then plan the rest of my transfers. But I would definitely ideally want to have 2 free transfers in the bank as many times as possible, to then give me that flexibility going into those game weeks, and then be able to maybe change depending on the circumstances. So sometimes you have a plan, but you want to kind of adjust it depending on the circumstances and situations, and also the new players that arise, and same with clubs that start entering these rich veins of form. So this is kind of what I'm looking to build towards, something like this. Having Son and Vardy is definitely a big selling point for me, and I am definitely considering it. So that's kind of my transfer plans at the moment. And Mbeumo will probably be coming in next, despite him hitting the woodwork 6 times this season, and the next best is only 1 time. I think players like Azpilicueta, Jimenez, they've all hit the woodwork once. No players hit it more than once, except for Mbeumo. So that's kind of crazy, to be honest. But still, he's looking impressive. He's looking like he's going to score in every single game, even against the kind of best sides. And I think with the fixtures coming up, he could definitely pick up some form and show a bit more consistency. But maybe he's just going to be the new Traore, but let's wait and see what happens there. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. Really appreciate all the support. Good luck with game week 9. Hopefully it's much better than game week 8 went, and we don't have these kind of Saka situations and all of that. But that's kind of part and parcel of FPL sometimes. Same with UCL Fantasy and just anything in general, to be honest. But thank you so much for all the support. Look forward to seeing you in the future live streams for UCL Fantasy and FPL, and I'll see you next time.